Welcome everyone. Day three. It's weird. I think after day one, it always feels like we've got loads of time left, and then by the end of day two, you're like, "Oh God, how's that gone?"
Yeah,
Um, and thank you for joining us. We were saying Monday might be a bit quieter because people have jobs and things like that.
some people
Um,
have proper jobs.
so thank you for being here.
Mm.
Um, I'd love to hear from people how they found Goodell because we've heard him before. We know him. We love to listen to him. But I wondered if that brought up things for people, or anyone had insight over it, or just anything that they have seen or have observations about from that talk.
Dan,
Yeah, it was really interesting actually. So I really the one of the main things that I took from what Godel was saying was when he said it was a way of life, um, his awakening. Never really thought of it like that before, so it was nice to sort of have a new outlook on it, I guess. Um, a bit like, I'll be honest, I come off the call last night and I was absolutely riddled with anxiety for absolutely no reason at all. And I thought to myself, I was like, do you know what? Yeah, it's a way of life. Like I know now that, I mean, for people that didn't know, like previous like community groups, like I've said, I think it's like 2 weeks ago that I felt that I didn't I'd lost my awakening kind of thing. Um, and after speaking to like a couple of different people, I now know that I've never lost it. I've still got it. And when Gordell was saying last night that it's a way of life and that like we're in charge of our own now, it's really helped. And I think I had a panic attack because I've spent like 3 or 4 weeks having the weirdest time and the most bizarre thoughts because I thought I'd lost my awakening in a way, which I thought was really, which I was gutted about. But now thinking about it, like I feel like today I'm at a place of, I wouldn't say complete peace, but certainly a place of, I don't know, I'm trying to find the word to describe it, but quite humble, quite like positive about moving forwards with it, this new insight, I guess, into what I've thought I'd lost, which I never had done. But yeah, I think again the one thing that I took from Godel was that it's a way of life and that we are the creator of us in a way. But yeah, that's
nice,
what
Dan.
I've got.
Just, I've been where Dan's been. I remember thinking that you could lose it. If you look at this from a logical point of view, it was never lost. Even before we became aware of this conversation, even before we became aware of the experience that people have when they have a shift, it was never lost. You can't lose. You can't lose because what awakening is the discovery of the infinite self, the different, a higher state of reality, a state of being that kind of surpasses words. And really, what we're talking about there is the ocean, and you can't lose the ocean. The ocean is the ever presence of life itself. It's the spiritual space from which everything is born as our experience of life. This place that, as I mentioned over the weekend, this that does not measure. This does not measure. This doesn't judge anything. This doesn't judge a single wave. This doesn't judge a feeling. It doesn't judge how well you're doing spiritually. It doesn't judge how lost we get. It doesn't judge whether we're getting life right or wrong. It doesn't judge. because it's only from itself do all these experiences get born. This in and of itself doesn't judge a thing, but this is who and what we actually are. So with that in mind, it can never be lost. You can never lose it. It was never lost in the first place. You know, when you find something, usually it's lost. I just found a little silver coin, little 12th, 13th century Edward I little silver hammered penny coin. That had been lost by somebody. I found it. That can happen in the dimension of physicality, but in the dimension of spiritual reality, which is this very moment right here, right now, you can't lose this. If you lose this, there is nothing. There is literally nothing. There is no thing, nothing, gone, everything. But you can't lose it. It's the space from which all reality is being born. So I'm saying that for you, Dan, and I'm saying that for everybody else who thinks that over time they may lose something. I did that. I believe that. But what you find is you go through that experience and you rediscover deeper aspect. Awakening is just the beginning. It's not the goal. It's not the end. Awakening is simply a new beginning. It's the beginning of a new journey in life. That's all it is. That's what it is. It's not the goal. It's not the end point. It's just the discovery of something new. And from that place, we evolve and we start to pay attention. Then we start to notice things about life. Then things in scripture start to make sense, you know, and books that we've read start to fall into place. And I mean, I love when we've spent time with the likes of Keith and Valda and people like that. And they've said, you know, the person who evolved the most through Sid Banks' teachings was Sid Banks. It was Sid who evolved the most. He didn't attain this place, and then from this place here, everything kind of emanated down. No, he found this place and kept on growing. He kept on growing like a tree, like a sapling. You discover we're like saplings. We crack open out of the nut and we start to form a couple of leaves and we go, oh, I see the light. I see the light. I feel the light. But we don't stay as saplings. It was the breaking out of the seed and starting to feel the light and starting to photosynthesize. That was the start point. How big we grow after that is just how much we notice about the magnitude of life. It was only ever a beginning in the first place. What do you say?
No, I'm just really I'm pleased that you're able to come and that you got to hear Godel and got to see that, because it feels like something has shifted in you. Because I think it takes the principles away from being a thing to get or understand to being it's life. It's life. And one of the things I said to Dave afterwards is, whatever happened to Godel when he was listening, it's like his presence grew, and like he recognized that he is the creator of his life. He's the creator of his character. He is the creator. He is before. He is the before. And I think he's just lived from that place. And lots of different stories. So we carried on speaking to him for a good few years afterwards. And then we had arranged to do, hoping to go out to the Congo with him and do a project. And then lockdown happened. And
we just got funding, haven't we?
Yeah, we got funding in the March, and then lockdown happened. But it has, I don't know, there was something that happened to him that when we were around him, we could see that it didn't matter how long we'd been around the principles or what we thought we knew. It was just like this, he just emanated something, and we learned from him. And he's been very honest at different points, which like the story about when he just saved up the money to go out to the Congo to go and honour his parents' graves, and he had something he was going to put on the graves. And he said initially the disappointment of that and the anger that came up in him, and he was in an awful mood in the taxi back to the house. But then what came to him was, what am I going to bring to my family That was the initial thing. If I go in this space, what am I then going to be giving to my family? What am I bringing to them? And he said something then just clicked in his head. And then suddenly the opportunity, turning a challenge into an opportunity, was like, right, well, I'm going to become a voice. What's the voice for people with disabilities and flying? And so I think he's very honest about the fact he still gets caught up and can kind of get negative about something, but there's something about what he heard that pulls him back very quickly, and he's like, right, how can I serve, how can I help, how can I grow? And he's got eyes for learning. It's like he didn't stop there, he's just had eyes for learning. So I was really grateful that he'd come on the call.
Yeah, I'm grateful we had that conversation a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
because he just got in touch and said, I want you to come and do some work out in New Zealand with us. And I'm really grateful he did, because I said, right, I'm going to get you on the retreat. So, no, thanks, Dan. Anybody else? I appreciate there's people who didn't get to hear Godel who are on screen. So we will just bear with us, and we will
put the recordings out.
Yeah, the recordings will be coming out.
The video that I was saying, Dave and Jen, with you is kind of stopping and starting and fuzzy, and I don't know if that's my system. I left and I went down and kind of reset my modem. I don't know, maybe Colin and Catherine could, if they're saying it just fine, then it must be my.
No, Dan, ours is the same. We've just commented that we can't see Dave and Jen properly. They're very, very fuzzy, and it's not even a full screen for some weird reason.
Is that any better?
It kind of pauses from time to time. I could hear you the whole time, but.
Is that any better now?
No.
No.
I'm going to switch internet.
Bear with us 1 sec.
It says
Is that better?
bandwidth is low.
No, there's a message that says Dave and Jen, Freedom Thinking Network, bandwidth is low and Dave needs a shave.
I thought the fact that our bandwidth was low was really enough.
Zoom, the AI in Zoom is getting really smart, huh?
Well, if that's all it said, Cole, then I got away like that.
No, seriously, Dave, it actually says your bandwidth is low. I'm not quite sure what that means, but
it means I'm tired. We didn't get much sleep.
Now that's better. Have you switched now, Jen?
Yeah, so it's switched, and also I've just shut down other things that could be using
right. That's better.
Yeah, that's better. It's not as good as last night or Saturday, but it's a big improvement.
Well, Myra says you're all right here in Texas, but perhaps this is like the stuttery stop start is how people are. I don't know. Are the people like that in Texas? I don't know.
That's funny. No, I could see you guys fine and hear you fine the whole time. Like y'all are slightly a little fuzzy, but y'all are coming through okay here.
Cool. Thanks for letting us know. Thanks for letting us know. Anybody else, please?
And also, I think sometimes on retreats when people share insights or they say that they're in a good feeling and then you're not feeling that. If there's anything people want us to talk to and they just want to put it in the chat anonymously, or if there's something that's not making sense, you can bring that as well. It doesn't just have to be insights. So no one, like in person retreats, often someone will grab me on the break and say everyone else seems to be getting something and everyone else seems to be having this lovely feeling, but actually I don't feel that. Can I have a bit of a chat? So anything like that, you're welcome to message.
I think I'll put what I'll add to what I said actually. The one thing that I still struggle with even to this day is like I can be extremely mentally I can be like mentally okay and I know kind of what to do. And the bit that I always struggle with is getting my physical being, like my physical body, to catch up with the positivity which is in my brain. It's as though the ego is kind of saying, no, you're still in this place. Like for example, today, my mind, mentally, I actually feel really positive, but physically, like my body feels tired, and I've got like a really tight band around my middle section under my chest, and a bit sweaty and a bit like shaky, a bit nervous, and it always drives me mad, because I can remember this happened last time, that I was mentally fine, and it took me about 2 weeks for my physical body to actually catch up with the positive vibes. And yeah, I think that's still something that I need to work on, because I'm not saying that it needs to catch up overnight, but it still bothers me a bit that I think it boils down to when I because I do have health anxiety, but yeah, I think that's just part and parcel, really. But that's the bit that I need to work on. I need to sort of accept what's happening, and just, again, like I keep saying to myself, just be kind and get on as best as I can.
No, it's really interesting when people say things like that. I have health anxiety, I have social anxiety and stuff like that. Because that is one of the most profound, I suppose, I can't really think of a better word, egoic statements we can make. Because it is like us taking ownership and creating an identity out of an experience. Because there are times when you don't have health anxiety, and I've known you throughout these times when you don't have health anxiety. And when I say you don't have health anxiety, what I mean by that is you're simply not experiencing it. And so if there are moments when we don't get to experience this, can it be true that this is a fundamental part of who I am? Something that comes and goes. Something that comes and goes is not a reflection of who we are. And this is one of the things that Jen and I are really we're hoping people will get a sense of. We are not what we experience. We are not what we feel. We are not even what we think. We are something that pre-exists, that lays at the heart of life itself. But what we have mistakenly done, what we've innocently done, is we've innocently mistaken ourselves for our experiences. And it's interesting because when we say I have health anxiety, say, and you just said I'm actually in a fairly good frame of mind, effectively, what you've actually done then is you've identified with the past. So maybe you had health anxiety yesterday or the day before, or perhaps even this morning. We've gone and identified ourselves with the past.
Well, it's another wave.
Yeah.
When you were doing that diagram, it's like, that's just another wave. I've got health anxiety.
Yeah.
And even in the language, you often say this, you're saying you have it, you're not saying you are it. So there's even a distinction there that
I have a Leatherman there. I have a mobile phone. I have a shirt. I have a wife. I have my pens. I have a cup of tea. I have feelings. I have thoughts. I have ego. I have hair. You know, we use the same language. We know in our language that it definitely is not us. Because if it was us, we'd say me. But when we say I have, or mine, my ego, my thoughts, my feelings, my shirt, my Leatherman, my Tektite, a little Tektite created by a meteorite impact. My Tektite. It's ownership. We're owning it. We own it. We're claiming it as ours. Not me. I know I'm not my Leatherman. Because I say it's mine, not me. I know I'm not this tech type because it's mine, not me. I know I'm not this shirt because it's mine, not me. My thoughts, mine thoughts, not me. My feelings, not me. My ego, not me. My history, my past. It's all ownership. It's not who and what we are. We speak it. We speak the truth. But like my sister says, we speak a language we don't really understand or notice. We're speaking the truth constantly. And so if we can start to realize, look, this is something, what I am experiencing, it's my experience, who is this me?
I will say just on that, it's very apparent to me that a lot of this, well, no, a lot of what I thought I suffered with is because of language and is because of the way that I've previously been told, like, you have health anxiety, you have panic disorder, you have la da da da. But actually thinking about it, that the only reason why that I think that I have that is because I've been told it by someone else. It's not something that I've just sat there and thought, oh, do you know what? I've got a panic disorder. Or, oh, do you know what? I've got health anxiety. It reminds me of, so I can't remember where it was from, but it was either on it might have been a podcast or a video. And someone said that we human beings are the only people that commit crimes because it's part of the language. Like, it's like, for example, like a dog isn't going to be like, oh, I'm going to go and rob that bank, or oh, I'm going to go and steal something from a shop. And it's kind of, and to me, I've kind of recognized that because it is just part of it. If someone hadn't have told me that I suffered with these apparent disorders, then maybe I wouldn't have that. I have this and I have that mentality about it.
Yeah. The thing is, if you look at what a label is, it's an attempt to describe an experience. Schizophrenia. The label of schizophrenia is an attempt to describe an experience. No two schizophrenics experience the same experience. They don't. They have different experiences, and bipolar, no two bipolar people have the same experience. No two people suffering from depression have the same experience. No two people with ADHD, no two people with ADHD. Everybody, by the way, everybody's got ADHD now. If you're on this screen, you've got ADHD. No two people experience the same experience of ADHD. But if you look at what these labels are, they're attempts to describe experience. Okay. They were dreamt up by the mind of people, some people, a group of people. Now, if people want to do their own research, go and do it. Go and look which industry is the driving force behind the DCSM, is it?
Something like that.
The diagnostic manual, which is getting larger and larger and larger and larger and larger each year as this group of people sit down to try and find new mental disorders to write down and medicate. Do your research. Go and do your research. And you'll find that the same people that are coming up with the diagnostic manual are being paid by a certain industry. It's not a good way to help people. It really, really isn't. But these labels, that aside,
Yeah, that's your personal opinion and what you.
that aside, yeah. The label itself is a creation from mankind's mind. It's not a fact of nature. It's not a force of nature. The label is something that some people dreamt up. It's a name. It's a word. It's a description.
And the behaviour existed before that description was given.
Yeah. So these labels that people are very quick to adopt, they are other people's thoughts. Be careful whose thoughts you take on. Be careful whose thoughts you believe.
It's kind of like having to say it yourself. Like, I'm not. I'm trying. I've got something from that, and I'm trying very hard to like sort of articulate it properly. It's like, even though that even though that we speak the same language, it's still having to differentiate between someone else's language and what yours is. So like all of these things that I've thought about myself isn't my language. It's someone else's that I've took on board.
Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what happened to me.
One of the things when you were speaking, I was just going to quickly say is when I mentioned to your dad that my dad suffers a lot of anxiety, and your dad went, "What is anxiety?" So I sort of described it to him as best I could, and he was like, "I suppose I've felt that from time to time in my life. Never would have called it anxiety." And I loved it because it was so different, because anxiety has been like this thing that we've talked about in our
You've
my
had
family.
to try and overcome.
Yeah, and it was just so interesting hearing a completely different take on it. It was so like, oh yeah, I've felt those kind of things. But
Could you share? Remember when you interviewed that lady, and you interviewed and it was great, but you kept the camera rolling?
oh, Marsha,
I can't remember.
yeah, I found that video. I think it's on my big computer at home. I'm going to try and put it back up because it used to be on the movie site. But we were filming someone and did a lovely interview, and then we'd finished, but the cameras were still rolling, and we started chatting. We're in Linda Ramos's offices in
Santa Clara.
Santa Clara County, in the Drug and Alcohol Services Division, and she said something. She was talking, and she went, "If I'm thinking too much, I might be delusional. If I'm thinking too much, I might have a panic attack. But when my thinking slows down, there is no mental illness at all." But it was like on camera, she sort of had this, it was almost like she was realizing what she was saying as she was saying it. And then she just sort of sat there a bit shell-shocked. And we were all like in this room, and it's like the truth of what she said just hit us all. When all of that dies down, there is no mental illness. And she was someone that was labelled, she had schizoaffective disorder, anorexia, all kinds of labels. Like she had so many labels, and she'd come across the principles quite a few years before and dismissed it. And then I think a year or 6 months before we met her, she'd come across it again, and something had started to kind of grow. Something had woken up in her. And in the time that since she'd come across it, she'd managed to go down to a quarter of the medication she had been on. And she'd been on that for 20 years or something. But it was just that statement. It was one of our favourite little clips, and we did that the day before we flew back to the UK, and it was
Worth it for that.
It was just worth it. Yeah.
Just repeat it. What was it?
All of it. All.
Yeah.
If I'm thinking too much, I may be delusional. If I'm thinking too much, I might have a panic attack. But when my thinking slows down, there is no mental illness at all.
Trying to label thought. Trying to label thought.
one of the sweet things about her as well is the night before, me and my ex-husband Rudy had done a talk, and that's how we'd met her. And Rudy spoke about his upbringing and how there'd been a lot of drug and alcohol abuse in the family. There'd been violence. He'd had quite a difficult upbringing. And then she just sat there in tears. And then so at the end is we went over to her to ask why was she crying, and she said she was crying with relief because she'd been carrying so much guilt about how she'd been as a mother up until 6 months previous, that she'd broken and damaged her children and they were sort of destined to have terrible lives. And sort of seeing Rudy stood in front of her with a lot of love and compassion, and she saw him as a lovely man. She's like, wow, there's the potential for my children to have beautiful lives exists. And it had taken so much off her mind. So then when we said, look, would you mind us interviewing you? She's like, anything you want, I'll come and be interviewed. But it was such a sweet moment because she'd been carrying that.
This is it. You know, there is nothing outside of thought now that is creating our experience. What we believe won't look like thought. It will simply shape a reality that looks, for all intents and purposes, as being solid and fixed and factual, until that belief changes. And then we start to notice, and we've all had these belief changes throughout our lives, but perhaps we've never noticed from the point that actual point that when beliefs change or thought changes, reality changes, our experience changes, our reality changes. You know, when I first met Jen, I thought she was one of the most beautiful people, in fact, probably the most beautiful person I'd ever seen in real life. And shit, that sounds.
Now
I'm going to carry on. And but however, I didn't have romantic feelings for you. I just saw you as a very, very beautiful friend, and that was it. I just didn't have any romantic feelings. But then, for whatever reason, my experience changed, and I start to get to have feelings for Jenny. Okay, my reality changed. And then we went through the honeymoon period, as you go through, and then you settle down, and then we go through all these different experiences. There was time when I remember driving down to London with you, and I'd not felt very connected to you for a few weeks, and also it seemed. I actually haven't got a clue how long it had been. It had been just a couple of days, in all honesty. I can't remember. But I remember saying to you, I need to talk to you. I'm feeling there's something not quite right in our relationship here. And you were like, what? What do you mean? I said, we're coming up to Thelwell Viaduct. I remember exactly where it was. And I said, well, I'm not really feeling that spark, that connection anymore, Jen. I think we're taking a lot of flack on YouTube, on Facebook, for getting together, and the guilt started to hit me. And I remember you just went, oh, I thought we'd been our most connected. I was like, I haven't. And then you just looked at me and you went, you get that too then? I was like, what? You went, you get that too? I said, what do you mean? She went, well, sometimes I get that as well. I said, do you? What? She's like, sometimes I want to take your clothes off. She said, and other times I just look at you and go, meh. I was like, okay. And then you said something to me that hit me like a ton of bricks later on. You said, do you want to know the difference between you and me, though, Dave? I went, go on. You said, you think it has something to do with our relationship. She said, I know it has everything to do with my state of mind in that moment. I look back at all my relationships I'd walked away from because of that feeling of disconnection. All the times I'd given up. We got down to London, got into bed with you, and I remember just bursting out laughing. I laughed and laughed. I was just like, it was so funny. Jim went, what are you laughing at? I went, I've just had the biggest insight. She said, what was it? I said, I haven't got a clue. Haven't got a clue. There was a complete shift in my being, and I fell in love with Jenny. Sadly, I told Jenny that I didn't have feelings for her. So a few weeks later, I noticed Jen hasn't really kind of been feeling that connected to me. And I'm like, Jen, is everything all right? And you're like, no, I don't think it is. It's like, what's going on? She went, well, do you remember what you said a few weeks ago? I said, what was that? She said, you felt disconnected. I said, yeah, I remember that. And she said, well, I said, I don't feel like that now. I said, in all honesty, I said, I've never felt more attracted and in love with you. And you just looked at me and went, isn't it interesting how easy it is for us to hold each other, hold people to a moment in time, thinking that that's the truth, holding on to that moment in time. And the reason why I'm sharing that story is because our realities are fluid. Notice it. Our realities are fluid. Sometimes we may have the experience of anxiety. It comes and it goes. It's a wave. Sometimes we may feel deeply connected and so in love and just like, oh, I'm the luckiest man or woman on the planet. And the next few moments, you're like, meh. You know, sometimes you love your job. Other times, oh, for God's sake. But notice the fluidity. Notice it isn't actually rigid. Because if you align yourself with that fluidity, you allow yourself to change. You allow the change to come naturally. You don't fight it. There's nothing to fight. There's nothing to fight. Nothing to fight. There's no war. Only when we have no love for our experience do we deeply suffer. When we can allow all experience. What is depression? It's an experience. What is anxiety? In fact, no. What is it, full stop? The feeling states. They're feeling states, are they not? The states of feeling. We feel those states of being. But what is a feeling without an identity? What is anxiety without the label, without the heavy story about it all? What is anxiety without the story? What is depression without the story? Without the label? Without the ideas of right, wrong, good, bad? What is it?
And also, it's not just those kind of labels. It's like I was just thinking about, I've kind of had this thing of I'm not very good at driving. Like since we've been, because I'm with the world's best driver,
Must be difficult.
it's been difficult to feel like I can drive. But it reminded me of
No comment.
when I was out in America, and the same trip I met Marsha, I went to a 3-day facilitator training program within the Santa Clara County. It was all the different facilitators came together for like a retreat over 3 days, and it was a brilliant retreat. Loved it. Loved meeting everyone. And then Rudy was not feeling well, so I said, "Oh, I'll drive." And Linda Ramos had lent us this massive, what kind of truck? It was a huge truck. I don't even know what it
Is
was.
it an F-150 or something?
I don't know. But I hadn't driven the whole time we'd been out in America. But I drove home in this huge truck. Obviously, they drive on a different side of the road to us. And I remember the next day going, oh my God, I drove that truck. I drove in America. Like, my story, for whatever reason, wasn't there, that I'm a bit nervous driving, and it was easy. It was effortless. I didn't have to think about it. I just drove. And I think since we've had our van here, I've only driven it maximum about 5 or 10 times. But I can't manufacture that same insight, that same like, oh, yeah, no, I can do it. I keep trying. And then I get like, I sit there and you're like, don't hold on so tight to the steering wheel. But I can feel myself getting agitated. But I love that, for whatever reason, that experience of like having nothing on my mind and being able to do it. And another experience of that was I went to adult gymnastics classes, and it was like free running and stuff. And we had to do this thing where you'd run along, do a somersault, and you into this massive like foam pit. And the girl was like, oh, well done, that was really good. Just be really careful on this bit, because you could break your neck or something. I was like, oh. And then every single time I tried to do it, I'd run, I'd get to do it, and I'd be like, I could break my neck. And then so I never did it again. But the first time I just did it. And I think you start to see that in your own life. Like, we limit ourselves with our beliefs about ourselves. And as soon as something's on your mind, like we're like with Lucia, she's got a new outfit on and I'm trying to keep her clean. As soon as it's on my mind, I'm the one that ends up like knocking it or doing something. We become so stupid when we're like up in our heads. And then when everything clears, we are very capable and able to do things but we put so many limits. So we've kind of seen that anxiety is a label, and depression, but even this idea that I'm not very good at driving, or, oh, I'm a fussy eater. That was my one that I had, even up until meeting you. I'm really fussy. I'm weird around food. I'm really fussy, like, and there's certain things. And since we've been together, that has got less and less. Like, I was with my friend the other day from 20 years ago, and we've just sort of in recent years got friends again. She said, God, do you remember what it used to be like around food? Do you remember being at my house and like dissecting everything and like picking out the bits that you could eat? And I'm like, and that's what I feel like the principles brought to my life, is that you start to see the limiting beliefs that you live out of. And then you get to question them, you get to have more autonomy. And then other ones have just fallen away. And it's like, it's one understanding, like, recognize you are this ocean creating. None of the things you've created are true or fixed. None of them are fixed in the world. And with that understanding, you identify more with this and less with this. Of course, it's going to be more fluid. But if you think one of these is real and fixed, we can't do anything about it. So even the idea, I wouldn't say I'm an anxious person anymore. And that was just before we had Lucia. We did 4 days with someone. And I said on maybe day 2, my character, my ego's, more likely to be anxious, and Dave's character, Dave's personality is more likely to be angry. And I just thought, well, that's not true. Up until this point, that's what's shown up for us more. But going forward, that doesn't have to be true. But I still identify as someone who has anxious thinking. I'm a bit anxious. I'm a bit of an anxious person. And it really opened something up to me of like, why do I still identify with that? It's a feeling that I don't feel so much of the time. But I still hold it as one of the things I would maybe say about myself. So I just went back. I said, I'm really sorry. I want to scrap that statement. That's totally not true. And I remember the person just laughing, going, wow, yeah, how easy is it for us to do? I'm an organized person. I'm a this kind of person. I'm a thoughtful person. And none of those things are wrong or bad. But as soon as we feel like that's who we have to be, and there's something that Lee said once, all the things you felt you had to do to be you. So I don't know if your internet's good enough or if you'd want to talk about that, Lise, but I used to love it at community group when you shared that, because it was so powerful.
Mm.
You might be asleep. You might be too busy making something. But I don't feel like I'll do the story justice. But
Hi, Jen.
Hiya.
So I can't find Zoom on my phone.
Lise,
So
just turn yours off because you're getting feedback,
Or down.
or down, one of the two.
yeah, that insight was cool actually. That was so after me and Dave had been to our first ever talk
No.
together with Dickon.
Can I stop you? Lise, can I stop you? You've got two Zooms going at the same time. We're getting feedback. And secondly, it's terrible line. Can you get some better reception?
Felt better, Dave.
Yeah, try it. You're at work.
Mind if I just take this down here, Maggie, and I'll bring it back up? Yeah, so when we first
Oh no.
in order to like be me, because I didn't know. No, it was that I didn't.
Start again.
Okay.
Yeah, you're back again now.
Back again. Now go start again.
Well, but where did you be? What did you hear?
Nothing.
Oh. So after we went the first time I met Dickon with you, Dave, and you were there, Jen, as well, in Manchester in 2014. My whole identity, although I didn't know it, revolved around fitness and running and doing sort of like big things, big events. And in order to be me, I had to like go running on a Sunday morning, and I had to do stuff. And not in necessarily really egotistical way, but like I'd tell people like what I'd been up to and what I'd done. And then I remember on this Sunday morning waking up in my caravan that I lived in and lighting the fire and reading a book, and I lay there all this entire Sunday in winter with a fire going, and I read this book. I nearly read a whole book, and I was like, oh my God, you know, this feels beautiful doing this. And hadn't realized that I wasn't doing all the other things that I had to do to be me, who I thought I was. So naturally, those things like the sort of, I mean, the need to run a certain distance and the need to tell people what I've been up to and to identify with like a behavior to be me just fell away. And then I was open to do like so much other stuff. Like I still do those things, but I do them because I enjoy them. I don't do them because they're who I am. They're just something that if I get the vibe and the energy to do it, I'll do it and enjoy it. I'm not like identifying with them to be anybody or anything. Is that kind of what you meant, Jen?
Yeah.
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 I always remember you used to act it out as well, because you'd be like unzipping yourself.
Oh yeah, no, it was like I sat there in that because I was dreading that weekend that Dave and I went away to Manchester, because I was like, okay, that's 2 days I won't be running for, and I'm going to be sitting around eating and listening to a talk. Because I can't sit still, I'm going to get bored. That didn't happen. I'm going to have to, you know, do something like I took my running trainers with me because I'll have to go for a run. That didn't happen. Look at my back.
Oh, that
That didn't happen. And it's just like the more that ebbed away naturally, the more space it left for just enjoying the flow of what you know, what felt good, because a lot of the time those things didn't feel good. They were, and it was an identity which we create. And but I think we always live in that.
Like an obligation to yourself.
Yeah. Well, I had to do that in order to be me. I didn't know who I was without it.
Yeah.
And then a great lesson is like when I went to Alaska in 2011 and fell down a mountain and severed the tendon of my kneecap. All of a sudden, having 19 stitches in my leg and a leg brace and a pretty broken body on an adventure holiday, all of a sudden I had to slow down to the pace that everybody else was at. And I secretly loved it because I had an excuse to not, you know, I had an excuse to rest. Whereas I never used to have that. Yeah.
And I love the story. This is my sister, by the way. There was a time when you went and did a race up in Glencoe, but you always had to talk about that.
Yeah, so I had some shape shifting insights, which led me on this kind of journey. The first journey was why do I drink alcohol? I absolutely hate the taste of it. I hate having a hangover. I'm really brilliant. I'm really indulgent with it with my friends. So why do I do it? Anyway, I couldn't answer my own questions. So I completely stopped drinking alcohol, and it fell away. And 10 years later, you know, I still live a life that doesn't, you know, have alcohol in it. And I drank it in like a recreational sort of cultural manner. And I was about 4 weeks into like the buzz of not having a hangover or feeling rough and being fully in life, you know, like going out at night and driving with friends up onto the mountain passes and watching shooting stars where normally I'd have had a hangover or wouldn't have been able to drive. And on the back of that, I entered a race in Glencoe. It was a half marathon. And I just wasn't very well when it came to doing this half marathon. I had like a bug or something, some description. And I can remember getting hold of the race organisers and saying, look, I'm not very well. Do you mind if I demote to the 10K? And they were like, no, that's fine. You can defer your place. If you pay for the 10K, you can defer your place till next year. I was like, okay, cool. And I stood on the start line and I didn't mind whether I was just going for a day out, and I had no watch on. I used to always run with a running watch and track my pace. And if I hadn't run under like 8-minute miles, then I'd had a shit run, and none of that mattered. I just didn't have it on my mind. I felt
mountain miles, by the way.
And although
miles are mountain miles.
Although it's so interesting, the freedom. It's so interesting how much energy you use trying to be somebody. That's really interesting. And that's what this race taught me. Because I didn't mind, and actually, I have actually come last in a race since this insight, and I didn't care. I got lost on the route and I came last, and it was like I trotted in last. I was like, oh, it was a great day out. And I was like, God, who am I? That would have never happened. I'd have been devastated and I wouldn't have told a soul. But I just didn't mind. But this particular day, I stood on the start line, feeling a bit rough and a bit ill. And the race started, and I was just running, and I was having a great time. And as we got to the top of the hill in Glencoe, this guy said, "Go on, first woman." And I was like, "Really? First woman?" I was like, "Oh, maybe I'm going to try now then." And I came over the finish line as first woman, and I'd broken the record by 4 minutes. And it's been well smashed now, but I'd never ever run a race before, and I'd done loads, and I really cared, and I really trained, and it really mattered to me. But when I stood on that start line with no watch, with no, energy leak, nothing, my energy was not going anywhere. My energy was with me. I won this race, and it just showed me that when we're trying to be something we're not, or when we're trying to impress people, or it's like just leaking energy. And yeah, and it really showed me something. And and like I still love running to this day, and I enter races now, and I just go for the crack. It's great. I don't mind how I do it for the people and the fun, and yeah.
I love that. I remember when Jen and I were in Cape Town, we're at One Solution conference, and a young lad came up to me and sat down. He's like, I swim. He said, how would this help me swimming? And I told him the story about my sister stood on the start. I said to him, I said, when you're on the blocks, what are you thinking about? He was like, my stroke, my turn. I said, how long have you been swimming for? He said, since I'm 8. I said, how old are you now? 19. Oh, so you can swim. You've established you can swim. And he just got a scholarship to an American university because of his swimming. I said, why do you overload your mind with that kind of stuff before you start? Do you think it makes you more efficient? A head full. And I told him about my sister standing on the start blocks, because when you first told me, you went, oh, you said I've forgotten to put my watch on. You'd forgotten to put your watch on. You'd intended to. You'd forgotten to, oh, well, I'll just enjoy this. I can't measure it anyway. I'm just going to enjoy this race. And it was then that you knocked 4 minutes off the record at that time. I got a message back off this lad. It was a month or so later, 6 weeks later. And it was this lad's scorecard. And he sent me his scorecard. I didn't really understand it. And I said, can you break that down for me? And he said, yeah. He said, I stood on the start blocks on my race. And he said, I think he swam the 400 meters. And he said, I stood on the starting blocks. He said, and I was ready. I was going through all my emotions. He said, and then I remembered our conversation. He said, I just dropped all that thought. He said, and I just became present in the swimming pool, in the race. I came into the room and the pool and where I was. He said, and bang, off we went. He said, and I just swam. He said, what I'm showing you is on that race, he said, I knocked 8 seconds off my personal best. It was because he didn't have a head full. He wasn't tangling, like Lee says, leaking energy. What is depression? It's a ball of thought. It's a lot of thinking going on. What is anxiety? It's a lot of thinking going on some level. It's exhausting. We are at our most efficient when we are in alignment with the livingness of life, the presence of here and now. That's when we're at our most efficient. You know, what would I trust best to avoid an accident? If I'm driving, so there's an accident in front of me, I'm doing 65, 70 miles an hour coming up behind it. What am I going to trust best? My thinking or my instinctual livingness of life that seems to be able to respond in a moment to what is necessary? I'm so grateful that we have this power behind us to kind of guide us, to move us forward. The only thing that this oh still small voice of calm in the song, in the hymn, oh still small voice of calm. This quietness is there. There's so much there when we connect to it. This stuff is loud, it shouts, it gets in our way, we're kind of like blah blah blah. This is the problems in the world and our lives, and this sees through all of it. And when we start to discover this, we start to discover what Goldell was talking about yesterday, and we start to discover the faith. We start to find faith. We start to find faith in ourselves that we can deal with everything that life brings to us. And that's a really, really beautiful place to be when you discover that anything life brings to me, I know I'm going to be okay. And we've had so many examples of that. Like people who've got nothing, homeless people, but they're some of the most amazingly peaceful, loving people who have absolutely nothing. But they shine this kind of light of centered peace and wholeness. Just one sec. Sorry,
Liz
Liz.
was going to say.
Oh, sorry,
No,
Liz.
no,
Go
it's all
say,
right.
go say something.
I was going to say something, but Dad came and talked to me, so I didn't realise I was unmuted. I was going to say something a minute ago, but only when you're ready.
Go.
I was going to say that I had a bit of an insight. I've been up in Scotland for 2 weeks, and it's been really, really wonderful because I've been with friends who've had kids, and we've been out in nature every day, and we've been playing in the mountains in the snow and doing like long distance walks and being present in nature and having quite a lot of like quiet time and quiet space. And it occurred to me when my friend Chloe, who is an Alaskan girl, she got in touch with me to say, you won't believe this. My daughter Snowy has, Chloe in Snowy, Alaska, she has absolutely smashed all the skiing championships. Now, this kid is 13. She's been offered a mobile phone. She doesn't want one. Chloe's like, who is this child? She's got these opportunities to have tech. She doesn't want it. They live actually where they live. They live 40 miles away from the nearest mobile phone mast. So when we get in touch with one another, I can expect like a 4-week lull between our communication, or I get a letter, which I love that because the energy in that is very different to the energy of technology. To me, just to me, that doesn't mean to say it's to everybody. And she's also doing this Scottish dancing, Snowy, and she's winning like nearly everything she's doing, but she has no ego. Like she has no attachment to the outcome. She's in the joyful state of what she's doing. And I was in my camper van because that's what we've been away in, and it just occurred to me. I was like, Chloe, Snowy has no like leaks in her energy. She has no influences. She is fully in the power of her own experience. This is a big statement, I suppose, but her own unpolluted experience of her life is she's just living as she is without any sort of knowledge of a great big outside world. And she's almost sheltered from external influences in a way that I've never seen another child be. But she's so interesting, and she's so alive because she's not. And my observation of that is, you were talking about ADHD before, Dave, and about like how our minds work is our minds work on information. We get stimulated, we think. We talk about a banana, we think about a banana, and we have so much information coming in our lives that I think it's really important to find that, to take time for quiet, so we can actually hear our voice, the voice that's designed for us, that voice that will guide us. And sometimes we have to learn to sit in uncomfortable thoughts. But if you observe that, it can't touch you. You can experience it and feel it. And I think the more you start to notice it, the more you can allow it to like pass through, lean out. Because life's always, I love how Sydney Banks puts it, like life really is a full contact sport. Just because you have an absolutely blissful, insightful awakening doesn't mean that you're not going to get kicked about in the waves a bit, but you're still the same.
Yeah. Thanks, Lou. This is true.
We missed you at community group.
Yeah.
I like listening to
stories.
Hiya, Kate, love. No, thanks, Lou. Thanks for being here.
Right.
I appreciate it.
All right. It's been interesting this week because I've joined Mountain Rescue and I've just been on like a 5-day winter training, and I'm like the least experienced person on the team. And it's really cool because I've got this whole new identity of like being the beginner. And normally I'd be like, oh, yeah, I know what I'm doing. You know, I don't know that. And it's just like, I'm not. I'm cool with being the absolute beginner. And it's so lovely because people come and help you out, and because you're just not, there's just no point in trying to be something you're not. But there'd have been a time where I'd have been trying to, like, I'd have been telling stories about all the stuff I've done. But yeah.
Yeah, there's an openness when you're a beginner, isn't there?
Yeah, you learn so much more.
Yeah. And I think that's a beautiful point for this. You know, this is one of the things Jen and I often say, you know, we're always at the beginning. What's that saying in the book of Thomas? When Yeshua he's asked, tell us how our end will be. And Yeshua's response to that question is, oh, I take it from your question that you asked me about the end, you found the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Blessed is he who takes his place in the beginning, for he'll know the end.
Mm.
It's like staying in that. I think Buddhism call it beginner's mind, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, do you know that kind of, what is a beginner? Well, they're open. They don't think they know everything. They're open. They're learning. They're present.
It's like watching a kid, isn't it?
Yeah,
They
it's like
go
watching
from
a
just
child.
not knowing anything to just suddenly being able to do all this stuff.
Yeah, watching Lucia grow, the growth that takes place through somebody who doesn't think they already know everything or know something. And I think that's one of the things, like, I often say personally, I don't know what I'm talking about. I do not know what I'm talking about. I don't know what mind is. I do not know what consciousness is. I could chuck you a word. Oh, it's awareness. I know what consciousness is. It's awareness. But what's awareness? What is it? Somebody would go, oh, it's energy. Okay, well, what's energy? What is energy? What is it? And like, what is thought? Thoughts, this, that, and the, I remember Sue asking me that question. What is thought, Dave? I went, oh, it's ideas. And she went, oh, well, congratulations, Dave. She said, you found a use of thought, is what she said. She said, but what is thought? I remember that being one of the best questions I've ever been asked in my life. What is thought? And I remember looking at her, and this is before I woke up to the principles, and I said, I don't know, Sue, what is thought? And she went, neither do I. I remember that being like one of those moments where I was like, all right, now you've got my interest. Now you have my interest. There is something within me that I don't know. There's something here that I don't understand, but I feel like if I can start to get a sense of it, then there may be some movement in my experience. And it's like the reason you can't know thought. This is infinite thought, infinite possibilities, infinite potential. I know thought. I know what thought is. Well, what is thought? Well, thought is this. That's a wave. That is a potential. That's an idea. It's a concept. Every single thought is a concept. It's a potential of the mind. It's a creation. This is the space from which all creation is born. To think that we know what this is like walking out into the middle of the Sahara Desert, picking up a grain of sand and going, oh, I thought the Sahara Desert would be bigger and better than that. Or it'd be like looking at the ocean and seeing a wave and going, oh, that wave there, that's the ocean. Just that. You see, I personally, I have got no idea what mind, consciousness, thought are. I know that the essence of it is love. Fabric of it is love. I don't know what love is. I don't know what it is. It will always be something my intellect cannot wrap its little finger around. And with that in mind, I don't try. I don't try and figure it all out. I take that off my mind. It's only this thing here that actually thinks that it needs to know anything. Why does it think it needs to know anything? Because it's only that aspect, that identity that feels like it's unsafe. This doesn't feel unsafe. It's pure safety. It's wholeness. It's unbreakable. It doesn't measure. It doesn't judge. So there's something really, really beautiful when we take the analysis out of life, including this conversation. Take the analysis out. Take Lisa describes it as leaking energy. It takes a lot of, how many calories does it take to work the brain a day? Is it 1,000 or something?
I think so. Yeah,
Apparently 1,000 calories. I wonder how many calories we'd save if we stopped overthinking. It's probably not a good diet.
It's probably how I've lost 2.5 stone in a month.
Hey Dave, you know, I think it's worth noticing. I think it's worth noting that we will always live in a state of creating identities. But then if we can see them and we can like sometimes laugh at ourselves and just shed it off a bit, I mean, it's the beauty of life, isn't it? We get the balance right. I mean, in order to be a human being, we're going to think forever and ever. We're going to think, we're going to feel, we're going to experience, we're going to create identities, we're going to be in relationships, we're going to have these jobs, we're going to do these amazing things. But it's an ever-changing flow of experience. So if you know you're creating an identity, sometimes it's so much fun. Like totally so much fun. If you are not blinded by your own creation and you have a little understanding of what's going on, you can. I love Russell Brand. He like totally flaunts himself. He's like, yeah, look at me, I'm like a peacock, but I know it. Wait. And you know, we're always going to do that. I think this whole thing of like, oh, it's really bad to have an ego. Well, we're always going to have some form of identity with something. Like my dog, I love my dog. I call her the fountain of love. I am so proud when I go into a cafe with my dog. I'm like, yeah, she's my dog. Yeah, isn't she great? You know, I get a chuffed out of that because she lights people up. But there'll be a time when she's not here to do that. And, you know, like I think it's the difference between being grateful for your experience and understanding that you are in an experience and being grateful for it and hanging on to something and trying for it never to change, not ever wanting it to change.
Or desperate it to change.
Or wanting to be seen to be a certain way or whatever, which isn't your, you know, it might not be a natural state and it's a real trying effort. I think we always live in some form of identity, and then we get those blissful bits where we just fall out of everything and melt into the universe.
Agreed. Thanks. I'm going to take a quick break because I really need a wee.
I need to do some work.
20 minutes, everyone. Loads of love.
Bye.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. Forgive me for this bit. I didn't do this at the beginning. This is a via donation retreat. So anybody who can, please, and you'd like to make a donation, please do so. You can do so via PayPal at info@freedomthinking.co.uk. If you've got PayPal, open it up. Who do you want to pay? info@freedomthinking.co.uk. That's Jenny and myself, and that just really helps us out and keeps us going. So thank you so much for everybody who's made donations so far. We deeply, 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 deeply appreciate it. And we do it via donation so that we can reach as many people as we possibly can. Those who can afford to pay, contribute, and those who are in a seriously struggling financial situation and can't afford to pay, they still get access to hopefully something that can help awaken something within them and guide them through life. So yeah, thank you everyone, and thanks so much to everybody who has donated. Dan, once this is done, we'll be posting this off to you. So yeah, thanks Dan for buying the second seascape. I've sold 2 seascapes.
No, thank you. Thank you. I already know where I'm going to put it. So
Yeah,
yep.
wonderful, wonderful, man.
I feel like you should send that one, but also send like a really neat one, just in case, with nice colours.
Okay,
I'll send you 2.
Jen will do you the other one. Okay, everyone. Anything anybody would like to say? Any comments, reflections, observations? Oh,
Yeah, similar to Saturday, that it's along the lines of I can hear the same sentences dozens of times over it, and it's almost as if it's in one ear and out the other. And then suddenly somebody will say it, or somebody will say it slightly different, and oh, that's what they meant. And I've just got that from Lisa, so please do say thank you to her from me later on.
should go. I will.
She's probably at work still. I know that this is no disrespect to you, Dave, but I know in the past that you've spoken to what Lisa was speaking about, yeah, but you called it efforting. I remember that. And I realize now that I didn't get it. It was one of those in that one and out the other, but twice. But in particular, when Lisa told that story about she stood at the start line of this race in the mountains and she forgot her watch and she said, oh, well, just switch off and go and do it. And I mean, I know from my days of like super fitness that 4 minutes in the mountains is like beyond phenomenal. And that sort of drove it home for me. Whoa, how important that aspect of it is, that just let go of the thinking around it, and what you said about that guy swimming and all that thinking around it. And yeah, so that hit home. So thank you very much.
You're welcome, man. Thank you. Thank you for your feedback. Thank you for your feedback. No, we think we have to do everything. We think we have to do life. Look closely. Do you do life, or does life do you? There are times when effort is required, and there are times when there is 0 effort required. This retreat is one of those moments when there is 0 effort required. We ask for 0 effort from people. 0, other than just to listen. That's all we ask. Efforting is wave. Efforting, trying to figure this all out is efforting. Is it this wave? Is that the way? Which is it? This Dave's talking about? Is it that Jen's talking about? Is it that Lisa's talking about? It's none of them. And it doesn't matter what that is. It's not it. See, I got the creaky chair today.
I swapped them actually deliberately.
Did you?
I always get the creaky chair. I'm fidgety because my back. So.
Yeah, it's when it comes to this conversation, it's 0 effort. It's Lisa on the start line before she's even taken a step. Oh, I haven't got my watch on. I'm just going to sit back and listen. I've got nothing on this. And it seems like Lisa, when she had nothing on it, she broke the course record by 4 minutes. Ill. She's a powerhouse. but most of that power came when she relaxed. Because I love Lisa's analogy, you leak energy.
Yeah, I like that.
We're leaking energy. How much do we give our energy away to? Trying to fix this, trying to fix that, trying to not be this, try and not be that. All this energy we're just giving away to nothing. Something that is temporary anyway. Something that isn't actually us. But is actually misunderstanding. Cheers, Wendy.
Catherine.
Dave, do you know, it's just dawned on me that, you know, when we were talking a couple of weeks back, and Dan, you picked up on it as well, when I said I can't be bothered, when there might be, I don't know, there might be a slight problem or whatever, I just can't be bothered to think about it. And I think that's, I can't be bothered to create a wave. What you've just said, it's just made a little connection for me, thinking, I think that's where I meant when I said, I can't be bothered. I can't be bothered to create waves because it means I've got to think. And I just can't be bothered to create a wave because I'd rather have the calm. And it seems to work for me. If there's a problem, I just think, oh, I can't be bothered. Can't be bothered to think. And so I just don't. I try not to think because I just can't be bothered going there.
Yeah, I think what you're describing is I can't be bothered to overthink.
Yeah, yeah.
There are going to be times in this life where we need to think, we need to figure something out.
Mm.
You know, and you're not, I'm sure you're not saying I'm switching that capacity off.
No, I'm not at all. It's just, if it's something that doesn't actually need my attention or doesn't need thinking about, then I just think, oh, well, why bother? You know, I just can't really be bothered to put the effort into doing that. And I think what you've just said, it just sent a little bit of a connection for me in what I was trying to say a couple of weeks ago on one of the calls.
Nice. Yeah, one of the things that you find as you start to put out your first few leaves and your next set of leaves grow, or perhaps the next set of leaves grow, is you start to become far more discerning with what you're going to give your energy to. You're not leaking all over the place. You start to, for your personal life, you start to realize what serves me and what doesn't. What is beneficial to my well-being and what isn't. So, for example, I don't watch the news. I can watch the news, but I can pretty much assume, I can pretty much guarantee if I watch the news, I'm going to turn into an opinionated knobhead. I don't like the constant, this is me personally, I don't like the constant peddling of negative story. And I honestly don't see the point in inviting the entirety of the world's problems into our sitting rooms. I don't see the point in that. So I don't watch the news. In fact, I don't watch telly, full stop. But I had to learn that doesn't serve me, that watching the news and watching all the horrific things in the world does not bring joy and light into my life. But I've also learned that that's the job of those people. Their job is to bring horrific stories to the masses. But for me, it doesn't serve my being, and I am not more used to the planet if I'm in suffering. I'm more used to the planet and myself and my family and everyone around me if I'm in my well-being. I make wiser decisions. I'm more fun to be around. I help to elevate the consciousness of the planet. I help to bring the frequency of the planet up so that we experience less of those things in the first place on this planet. Sid Banks said, if 100 people realized what I realized, the world will have spiritually awoken in a moment. In fact, he said the universe would have done. 100 people. Doesn't take many. It's not going to take many to flip the consciousness of humanity, because if we are all an ocean, but this ocean I'm talking about now is beyond. This is the soul personal ocean. You go a step before that, you become universal ocean. And Jenny is a wave, Dave is a wave, Cole's a wave, Kath's a wave, Dan's a wave, Angie's a wave. The trees are a wave, the insect is a wave. Everything is a wave, everything is made of the same energy. That's the oneness of life. Now, if some of those waves start to resonate at a higher frequency, that has an effect on the other waves. That changes the wave pattern of the other waves. There's a law in physics which says that high frequency cancels out low frequency. And there's also been a study of macaque monkeys in Japan where they call it the 100th monkey effect, where they used to go out onto an archipelago off Japan, and they used to throw the monkeys sweet potatoes, and the monkeys would love their sweet potatoes. But the tourists and the people who took the tourists out used to throw the sweet potatoes into the sand. So the monkeys would pick up the sweet potatoes and be trying to dust off the sand, because nobody likes eating sand. And then one day an observation was made that one of the young monkeys picked up its sweet potato, walked down to the sea and washed it. And its mate joined it. Another little monkey, a baby monkey, saw it, walked down. He washed his sweet potato too. He copied him. And the next day, these two monkeys, without trying to dust off their sweet potato, picked up the sweet potato straight down the water and washed it. A couple of the other monkeys washed their sweet potatoes. Before long, the troop of monkeys were washing their sweet potatoes. And when that troop of monkeys started to wash the sweet potatoes across all the archipelago and even onto mainland Japan, further than could be audibly communicated, the monkeys washed their sweet potatoes all at the same time. It was like it reached a critical mass of awareness within the consciousness of the macaque that it then became behavior for the rest. The information was passed between the collective, and they call that the 100th monkey effect. It's an observed effect of consciousness. Now, when we have these kind of conversations, and when somebody aligns themselves with truth, when somebody has an awakening, it has an effect on the whole. It makes it easier for the next people to awaken. It helps to raise the frequency of mankind, because if one wave changes frequency, it affects the waves around it. This isn't just some kind of psychological, theoretical idea akin to CBT, NLP, or anything like that. What we're talking about is the fabric of reality, and how in consciousness, the nature of reality. It just so happens there are so many things we are so unaware of within consciousness yet. So many things we're so unaware of. I loved Godel speaking about his manifestation last night. I love that. He's absolutely 100% true. We can attract into our lives that we deeply desire. I've had my own experiences of that. It seems to me like my intellect has no power over it, but my being does. My heartfelt desire, my heartfelt being does. My deepest sincere prayers do. They come into fruition. It might not be in the time frame that I want, but they come into fruition at some point. Sometimes it happens like that. When we're talking about consciousness, I remember when I first woke up, I remember I was driving down the road, and this little voice, one of the first times I ever heard this little voice, it came in my head, and it said, there are gifts within consciousness and thought that mankind is not consciously evolved enough yet to utilize. And I got the sense of clairvoyance, manifestation, travel, telepathy, communication, all via consciousness, all via mind. But it's coming for people. It's coming into this world. It's coming into the masses. This is going to become normal, that people can communicate through telepathy. you know, and that's already started. How many times do you go, oh, I was just about to ring you? You know, this is starting. We're off. We're going for it now. More and more people are having experiences that are so kind of out of the ordinary realms of reality. They're kind of going, oh, hang on, I'm starting to discover something new about life and myself that I couldn't see before. We're talking about something that is just, we're only scratching the surface of it with this conversation. We're simply scratching the surface of the potential of who and what we are as conscious, experiential, source, God, mind, true self beings, creators of the realms of reality that we encounter. Jesus in the book of Thomas said, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you would say to the mountain, move, and the mountain must move. And he claims that's how he managed to perform his miracles. He just had faith that it was taking place. Thought is the vibration. Mind over matter is another statement that's often used. Mind over matter. But we often attribute that saying to, you know, you can overcome any circumstance with your mind. What's the matter? Figure it out. But mind over matter, mind, spirit over form, spirit first, thought first. And I often repeat this, but it was a lady on one of your retreats once said, what you're saying makes so much sense. She said this to Jen, what you're saying makes so much sense. 20 years ago, my husband, he's an original biblical translator. He translates original biblical text. And she said, 20 years ago, my husband came in and said, I think the opening statement of the New Testament is inaccurate. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He said, if I was to translate it now, I would translate it as, in the beginning was thought, thought was with God, and thought was God. Thought, the power of thought, the manifester of reality.
Come on.
Family. The creator, the creative aspect. And that was one of Gaudel's deep realizations, was when he realized the God, and I think he said it on the interview we did of him, the God I have feared, somehow I am that God. Somehow I am that I have feared. You know, the mind creates stories and they look real. If I have a story about somebody, it's going to look real to me. If I have a story about myself, I've got. So, what was it? It's illness, anxiety. What was it? What was it?
Health anxiety.
Health anxiety. I've got health anxiety. You know, if I've created the idea I have health anxiety, chances are I'm going to believe it because it's going to look real, because it's going to feel real. So I'm going to assume it was real. But when you realize that's how reality works, as we think, so we experience, and so it looks real, you realize it's all up for grabs. It's all made up. It's all made up. It's not just health anxiety is made up. The whole shebang is made up. I'm making up this moment right here, right now. I'm making up my experience of it. I'm dreaming it. I guarantee nobody else is having the same experience of me as me. You're having your own experience. You're dreaming your own reality into being. This is the most powerful thing we can discover at this moment. This is the most powerful thing we can discover, because we go from being victim to creator. Mum, do you want to say something?
Well, I just was sharing it.
No,
Can you
go.
hear me?
I was asking my mum because she unmuted herself twice, but
Oh, I thought you said Wend. So,
Mum usually struggles to unmute herself. Can't mute her now. Go on, Wend.
well, anyway, I was just sharing in the notes with you that words whether it's the word became flesh or the thought became flesh, they fall so short of reality. And I was reminded, I was listening to something by Michael Neal today, that if truth were a flame and we're pointing at it with an icicle, the closer we get to the truth with our icicle, the less useful the icicle words are, because it's just so close to the actual truth that it's inadequate to
Correct.
stand up to it. So I love that metaphor.
I love that metaphor. It's beautiful. Thanks, Wendy.
Anyone else got anything they want to share or a direction they'd like us to go in? So also remember, you've got the rainbow on here, which you've done,
yeah.
so it might be nice. It's quite a nice.
Should we do that now and then we can come back and do questions?
Yeah, it could do.
Can you guess what it is yet? It's all right. I'm not going to do my Jimmy Savile one. Sorry. Okay. I did say I'll do another diagram, but in all honesty, I've forgotten I've done it. Okay. Hopefully, everybody can.
I think it's blurry. I think I need if I get out of shot.
You bring it in.
It's more to do with focusing on us.
I know. Anyway,
You can see it's a rainbow.
we've got a rainbow, and I know the rainbow isn't like accurate in terms of actual rainbow. I've done it in the words of the song: red and yellow and pink and green, orange, purple, blue, because it's easier. But I just wanted to share this diagram. Some people find it useful. I found it useful as a when I started to share it as a simple way of looking at things, because we're all familiar with rainbows, and I don't really know anybody who, when they see a rainbow, doesn't go, "Oh, look, rainbow." We all seem to have an appreciation for the rainbow. There's a respect for it. There's a respect for its beauty. Dan, do you like rainbows? Why?
They're beautiful. They're kind of magical. I lived in Hawaii, and rainbows are pretty common there. But yeah, it's like people. You're right. People stop. They pull their cars over. They get out. It's. I don't know. It's like a reminder of the miracle, I guess, that we're living in. Somehow. Just. It's like. Yeah, I don't know anybody who says I don't like rainbows. It's really
No,
good.
struggling to write miracle. I just CLE.
CLE.
Yeah, England wasn't. England wasn't my best subject. Chantel, do you like rainbows?
Yes, yeah, I do.
Why?
Like it's sort of all those songs about rainbows, I don't know. They're all kind of magical, as Dan said.
Yeah. Got magical down. I'm trying to find words that people.
Mystical.
Mystical. Nice. Mystical. Mary, what about yourself? Oh no, Mary, you can't speak. And Haley May, would you mind sharing?
Because they're colourful.
Full and nice. Very nice because it plays into my metaphor. What's that one? A reminder of a promise. Oh, that's deep. I'm not okay. Let's go with it. Yeah, let's go with that. I love them because they're natural. You know, they're just a beautiful natural thing. And Mum, do you say something?
Fleeting.
Lise?
Fleeting.
Fleeting. Fleeting. Fleeting. Cool. Thank you, Mum. Right. A rainbow. A rainbow is a spectrum. Cole.
When you're a child, they have the promise of a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
Yeah.
We have actually metal detected where it looked like the rainbow was ending and didn't find any gold.
There was no gold there. Apparently it's something to do with the light. I don't know. A rainbow is a spectrum. We know this. It's white light that is refracted through raindrops or a crystal glass, and it breaks white light up into all of what looks like white light is actually made up of this infinite spectrum of color. And it's when the rain is shining into the rain, the sun, sorry, is shining into the rain. Does it break the spectrum of light into all of its component parts? And so it starts at red and finishes through in ultraviolet for what our eyes can see, for what these optics can pick up. So we see red right the way through to violet, blue. But we know that the spectrum of light continues above and below because we have machinery now, cameras that can pick it up. We know that beyond our visible spectrum of our light reality that we can see, the colors that we can see, we start going into infrared light that is unobservable to us without machinery. And likewise, below the rainbow, it goes into ultraviolet, again, light that is unobservable to our naked eye. So we only get to see a very narrow bandwidth of the color of light, the spectrum of light. But nonetheless, that very that very narrow band is beautiful. It's beautiful. And we take the time to appreciate it. Okay, so you have this spectrum of light. Is there any wrong color in the rainbow? Can anybody see any wrong colors in the rainbow? Has anybody ever seen a rainbow that basically is not right? A wrong colored rainbow. Any wrong colors in the rainbow? Is green a wrong color, anyone? No. Okay. Purple? Any wrong colors? No wrong colors. No wrong colors in the spectrum. Okay. Let's flip this around a bit. Is he on most loudspeaker?
He's got me muted.
Usually can't find the mic. Okay, now we've got a different spectrum. We've got the human feeling spectrum. Okay. We've got the same principle here, apart from, rather than infrared at the top, I've put love. down at the bottom, I've put fear. Now, what I'm including in fear is, if you look closely, you'll realize things like anger, their source is fear. Resentment, guilt, their source is insecurity, or it's fear. Worry, fear. Hatred, fear. Like all the emotions that we would experience and kind of perhaps not label as fear. Look, if you look closely at the origin, you'll realize it's fear. Maybe it's fear that you're not good enough, so you have to prove yourself, like Lisa was describing. So many of our feeling states are created from that. I'm not good enough. Even if it comes to this, I'm not getting this. There must be something wrong with me. You know, it's fear. And love, I'm attributing things like, I don't know, compassion, forgiveness, kindness, altruism, those kind of things. Just the beautiful ways of being in life. Love and fear. Kind of two poles of the same magnet. You're right.
Yeah.
But in this diagram, consciousness is the thing that is shining onto thought. Okay, and it creates this spectrum. This spectrum within ourself. There is a spectrum of experience and a spectrum of feelings that we get to experience as human beings. It's not just human beings. This goes beyond human. This goes into all living things. Everything. People often say, don't attribute human feelings to animals and things like that. No, these are nature feelings. Human beings are an aspect of nature that they falsely assumed was something separate to nature. Human beings are nature. Whereas nature is the trees, whereas nature is the insects, whereas nature is the planets. We're nature. So these feeling states, they're not human feeling states, they're nature's feeling states. Nature built human beings. Whatever the intelligence is, mind, consciousness, thought, God, source, whatever that is, created life with the capacity for fear and love. As we get to understand more about what we call the natural world, as though it's something separate from ourselves, and we start to look at other beings, we realize that beings are capable of love. Lobsters mate for life. They find a mate. They mate for life. So do crows. Many crows will do the same. They'll find a mate. I saw a thing on Facebook about this bird that hit a window and it was killed, and its mate came along, looked at it, lay down next to it, and died. Because its mate had left, it left. And this lady was saying it was the most tragic, beautiful thing she's ever seen. She said only one bird hit the window, the other one came along, looked at it, saw its friend had left, lay down next to it, and died. Love and fear. I don't want to be here without you. I can't tell you exactly what it was experiencing, but I know that my little dog, Rusty, he could be the most loving thing, and he could show me love. He would lick me, he would cuddle up with me, he'd come and give me loves and nudges and cuddles, and then he could be very, very scared. He could be excited. He could be nervous. He could get anxious. He could get angry. He could be everything that I was. He could get jealous. He had all the feeling states that I have. I recognized them in him throughout different times of his life, in different moments. So this spectrum of experience is perfectly natural for all of us to have within ourselves. One of the greatest, in my opinion, one of the greatest mistakes human beings did was we separated the rainbow, we split it into parts of good and bad. We said from red through to say green, that's good. If you are feeling red, through to green. Good. You're healthy. Healthy. If you're feeling green through to orange, say, right, you might need to consider seeking help. There may be something wrong with you. If we're feeling blue through to purple, we called that mental illness. We gave that an identity of an illness. This misunderstanding about the nature of reality and experience is worth billions and billions of dollars each year. For people to be afraid of their feelings and to think that their feelings are something that's wrong with them. Their feeling, whatever feeling they're in, is a temporary manifestation. So if you think of how did my morning start out this morning? What happened this morning? Lucia woke up before me. So I was somewhere, I was in a dream, and all of a sudden Lucia wakes me up and I'm like, oh God, Lucia's awake. Is she awake though? Oh, she's gone back to sleep. Oh no, she's woken up again. Oh, she is awake. Oh, go on, Jen, you get up. Go on, you get up. Go on, please. I'm gonna have to get up, aren't I? It's gonna have to be me who gets up. All right, I'll get up. I'm gonna have a cup of coffee. Oh, a cup of coffee sounds good. Pretty excited by my cup of coffee. Better sort out Lucia's food. Oh, Lucia's so cute. Look at she cute. Oh, bless her little heart. Oh, Lucy, I don't actually have time to play right now. I'm making a cup of coffee. Blah, 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 blah. Throughout the day, my day's gone like that. I've gone in and out of all these different feeling states and experiences. But are any of them actually wrong? There was a time in my life when I spent quite a lot of time hovering around here. I was told I was mentally ill. Why? Because I felt a certain way. Because I had certain thoughts. These thoughts ripped into my consciousness and I experienced them, each one a frequency of their own state. Each one its own unique frequency, which was matched, which created this kind of frequency state of color, if you can imagine that. But all of these colors are really the same thing. They are thought reigning into consciousness, or they are thought coming from consciousness and creating this spectrum of experience. And we get to experience these experiences throughout our day, throughout our week, throughout our year, throughout our lives. We get to experience all these different feeling states. One of the greatest things people can wake up and realize is they don't need to be afraid of their feelings. There's no wrong feeling. There's no such thing as a wrong feeling. They don't exist. They're not information about what you should do. Like if I feel angry about something, it's not indicative of the fact that, I should go and beat them up. I should go and smash that thing to pieces because it's not doing what I think it should do. It's not information about how to behave. It's information about what I'm creating via my mind. This spectrum of human experience. Yes, each experience, Mum, you're correct. It's fleeting. You don't stay there forever. You don't stay there forever. We go in and out of all different experiences. This is how it's meant to be. It's perfectly natural for us to do that. Yes, life is colourful. Absolutely, life is colourful. We are going to experience the spectrum of life. This is the spectrum of experience. It's the spectrum of feelings. It's colourful. Yes, it's a miracle. Isn't it phenomenal that we get to feel these feelings? Take any judgment off and just notice the fact that you get to experience, you get to feel. How does that even come about? How did that originate? It's a miracle. It's magical. When you realize there is no wrong feelings, you cannot get this wrong. That's beautiful. Suddenly, you're allowed to feel. Why? Because you're not afraid to feel. How much do we create this kind of experience here because we're afraid of it? I'm afraid of purple and blue. I'm afraid of purple and blue. What does that do? It creates purple and blue. Mystical, correct. Correct. Mystical experience. This is all mystical experience. What is mysticism? Mysticism is an attempt. Mystics, people who talk of mystics, they're trying to explain life. That's all they're doing. They're trying to explain the unexplainable. They're trying to guide people to the unexplainable. This is a mystical experience. It's an unexplainable experience. It's inexplicable. The whole thing is inexplicable. There are no words. And yes, it's a reminder of the promise of gold. Beautiful. If we can see a rainbow in the future and we can realize the perfection of it, there is no wrong color in the rainbow. That's like us. Our feeling capacity to feel all these feelings is as natural as the rainbow in the sky. It's as natural as the rainbow in the sky. There are no wrong colors. There are no wrong colors in the spectrum. Careful not to split the rainbow into good and bad. You can. You won't do any harm. But what you may find is you create more of what you don't want. That doesn't exist. There is just feeling states. And without the judgment, without the story, without the label, that's what you're left with. Any thoughts on that, please? Anybody got any comments? Any arguments to it? Any arguments? Anything they'd like to say? Yeah, but what about this, Dave? What about this? Any exceptions?
Dave, did you say something about not splitting the colours? I had to take a phone call there, and I just sort of heard you say never split the colours.
Yeah,
Can
I
you
was referring to good, average, illness, or bad. You know, you can split it. We can in language. I don't feel so good today. It's fine. Do you know what I mean? But what I'm hoping that people will start to get a sense of is that whatever we are experiencing, its source is singular. If you're feeling happiness, joy, whatever, it's coming from thought. It's coming from the way you're perceiving the world in that moment, perceiving the subject or perceiving whatever. It's your perception. If you're feeling fearful about something, well, that's coming from your perception. It's coming from how you're perceiving it, how you're thinking, what you're creating about it. So when we split it into good and bad, really what we're doing is we're creating an identity that doesn't actually exist. It's another false identity that we give to states of being, correct or incorrect. And the reason why I like this diagram, this metaphor, is because when you see this, you can start to become aware of the spectrum within yourself of all kinds of feeling states. It's like a spectrum, it's like a rainbow. You realize there's no wrong colors in the rainbow. It's not wrong that you feel anything. There's no wrong feeling. It's a creation. Thought, consciousness, like a rainbow in the sky, is rain, water, and light. Once you know how the rainbow works, you know how the rainbow works. Once you understand how feelings come about, all of a sudden they don't appear to look like they're coming from work or the partner, your husband, your wife, your financial circumstance, your whatever, traffic, rain, weather. Once you realize where your feelings are coming from, it puts you in such a position of power for your life. Like I say, your victimhood dies, your victim dies. Suddenly there is no victim. There's just this is what I'm creating right now. That's all right. No problem. It's fleeting. It's not going to hang around forever. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Is it useful?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh. Okay. Let's call a break. I know we're half an hour early, but I think that would be quite a nice stop just to take a break. We'll come back in at 7 at 7. Oh no, we're right. We're right. No, we'll come back at 7:30. So we're going to come back in 2 hours. 2 hours, go and get stuff sorted out and make your tea and do whatever, breakfast, whoever's where. And I'll see you back in 2 hours' time. So UK 7:30. So it's according to the flyer anyway. Lots of love.